What's up, hungry people? Welcome to the Starving Chef's Kitchen. Today we're doing another Let's Cook live stream, and we're going to be making a beefy tortilla soup, 100% from scratch, hopefully in 30 minutes or less, with a bunch of ingredients, but I promise you it's going to be a delicious meal and you're not gonna want to miss out. So, if you like to cook, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit that thumbs up button, and leave a comment in the comments below to let me know that you're here and watching. So, first, obviously, we need to preheat our bowl. So we have our bowl, oops, transition over here. We have our pot all set up and ready to go. It should be nice and warmed up and heated. So the first thing we're going to do is take a little bit of our olive oil here and give our enamel pot a nice little coating of olive oil. Since this is beefy tortilla soup, obviously we're going to be using beef. Hopefully this isn't too loud. So basically we're going to get this nice and browned up and get it so that it is no longer pink. And that'll take a few minutes to cook down to exactly how we want it. Now, tortilla soup is the perfect thing for right now because we're supposed to be getting about 3 inches of snow tonight, which I'm definitely not looking forward to, but I know if I have some of this soup on hand that I'm going to be alright, especially if we get snowed in, because this soup is going to create several servings, and I would be shocked if we didn't end up with a bunch of leftovers. So, people at the office, make sure you come hungry tomorrow because this is what I'm bringing for lunch for everyone, because there's going to be a lot. So we want to make it nice and brown. I'm going to turn up my heat here. Usually when the meat stops sizzling so loud, that's usually an indicator that it is kind of not hot enough. It was hot at the beginning, and now that we've kind of cooled out the pan has reached the temperature of the meat for the most part, we've stopped that sizzles. But that's all good. We're just going to keep cooking and crumbling until our beef is pretty much browned and cooked through. Now there is an optional step to this. You can cook your meat and then take it out and strain it. I'm using like 95% lean ground beef, so I am not concerned about the fat content as much. In fact, I think that it might actually help make the soup more delicious. There's a running joke my boyfriend have that is, if it's cooked in beef fat, then it's probably really good, and that is hilarious because beef fat basically makes everything better. It's what like McDonald's fries their fries in. So obviously it makes things taste better, but if you're using anything lower than like 90% lean, I do recommend taking it out and giving it a quick rinse in the colander in the sink just to get rid of some of that excess fat. Basically what we're trying to avoid here, aside from being a little health conscious, is to make sure that the beef the fat doesn't bubble up to the top basically and leave the surface of your soup kind of glossy looking, rather than, you know, a normal shine of a liquid in a soup. It would almost have like a sheen to it, which is not what we're going for. So looks like we're about cooked down. It's okay if there's still a little bit of pink. That is totally fine because we will be cooking this for much longer. So if the beef is a little pink, as you can see, my beef is still a little bit red, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and move on to the next step. So I'm just going to try to move as much of this beef off here to the side, and then that'll leave us this little center here for cooking. Now you can already see here that the fat from the beef is sort of leaching in, which is actually kind of what we want, so we don't have to use any additional olive oil in this recipe. So the next thing we're going to add is our onions. Now if you tuned in a few weeks ago, we did a Know Your Onions segment where we went through several different kinds of onions and which are best for what recipes. So what I have here is white onions. They have a little bit mellower flavor right now because it is the winter time, but they are going to be the perfect thing here, especially when it comes to caramelizing and making sure that we have a nice evenly browned onion that caramelizes, gets a nice sweetness to it without it overpowering the beef. So we'll go ahead and toss those in. Now it feels a little weird to be cooking raw onions in my essentially halfway raw beef, but it'll actually all work out here as soon as the onions start breaking down and becoming softer. Now, of course, I'm just cooking here on one single electric cooktop. On a normal night, of course, I'd be cooking on my stove behind me, which cooks a little bit faster, has a little bit bigger surface area to cover the entire bottom of the dish, so we're sort of working in the center of the pot here. But if that says anything, it says that you don't need a bunch of fancy cooking equipment to make a delicious meal. Basically, if you can plug an electric plate into the wall and have a nice big pot, you can make the same recipe at home, kind of in any room. You don't even really need a kitchen, though I recommend having one because it's nice. So we are gonna let the onions cook down for a little bit longer. Now would be a good time to give it a little taste of salt and pepper. It's always really important to season as you go, especially because, you know, the flavors sort of layer into each other. After some time, they will start to develop more flavor. So if you kind of season as you go, there's less chance of those flavors kind of disappearing as you cook. So we're going to go ahead and get that seasoned, stir that in. My beef is pretty much cooked now. My onions are getting a little bit tender. You don't want to cook the onions too much because you don't want them basically turning clear. If they start to turn translucent, that means they're probably a little bit overcooked. In a recipe like this, it's not a huge deal if the onions are overcooked. Mostly it's a texture thing to keep them a little bit undercooked. But undercooking your onions will definitely result in a much tastier flavor. So once again, we're going to move everything off to the side here and leave a nice opening. You can see, again, the beef fat and oil and water and liquid all sort of conjugating here in the middle. I hope my camera is not getting fogged up. I'm going to turn on a little fan. If anybody's watching, let me know if this fan is too loud. I just want to make sure that my equipment doesn't start to get water in it from being under a hot pot, or over a hot pot. Alright, so next up we're going to add our corn. Now I'm using a golden sweet corn. Basically any kind of corn will work. I would stay away from the creamed varieties, of course. I've definitely used fresh corn as well, but this is just a generic canned corn. I think it's like the Family Value brand, and it'll work just the same. Now I prefer more corn in my chili or more corn in my soup than beans, which we'll be adding here in a moment. But the corn can also be substituted with hominy, which is kind of like a in-between corn and a bean. It's almost like a garbanzo bean, but it's corn. So it kind of has that texture of a bean, but tastes exactly like corn. That is another alternative thing you can use in this soup recipe. And I did say chili a minute ago. I guess technically if you cut back a little bit on the liquid, you could make this into a chili, but we're definitely aiming for a soup consistency today with this recipe. So I'll give that a nice stir. We'll start getting that corn heated through. Now if you really wanted to be an overachiever, you could set that corn out on a baking sheet and broil it for a few minutes just until it starts getting caramelized, a little bit charred to add some smoky flavor to this soup. But that is totally optional. Obviously, I did not do that because I am here talking to you instead of standing over my oven, making sure that my corn doesn't turn into popcorn. So now we're going to be adding our tomatoes. We have several different kinds of tomatoes we're going to be adding, and from everything from petite diced to tomato paste. So I'm, again, just using store brands here, some Hunt's petite diced, and then I also have a roasted garlic variety. The petite diced variety does not have any additional flavorings to it. So if you kind of want to keep the garlic and onion flavors toned down, I recommend using the plain variety. But if you want to pump it up, you can use a roasted garlic. I know that they have like diced with chili peppers and diced onions. So there are different options. And I'm actually just going to use both of these. So it gives me a nice balance of the two. So go ahead and pour those in. That way. And then we're also going to add, this is tomato juice. The recipe usually would take about a cup to 2 cups, and I'm just going to throw in about a cup here today, because I think that's about all we're going to need, especially because I'm already anticipating that this recipe is going to produce a lot. So go ahead and stir in those tomatoes, get them nice and incorporated with your beef and corn and onions. And as you can kind of already see, we're getting a little bit of a liquid kind of accumulating here on top, and that's exactly what we want to be seeing. Now again, of course, I am using just a singular cooktop, so my cook time is going to be a tad bit longer. I recommend just cooking this over a medium-high heat. And like I said, this is going to be a 30-minute recipe, but there's definitely benefits to letting it simmer for longer. The longer you let it go, the more the flavors have to develop. So we'll go ahead and just stir that in. Give it a quick seasoning with salt and pepper. Hi, the Baking Diva. I am making beefy tortilla soup. It's gonna kind of be a hybrid between a beefy tortilla chili and a soup, which is awesome. So if you want to make it into a chili, we're just gonna leave out some of the liquid ingredients later. But if you want to make it into a soup, we're gonna be adding those. So beefy tortilla soup, man, you are in luck that you're tuning in now. So we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of tomato paste, give that a nice stir in there, and that basically is just to really drive home the point of the tomatoes and then also be a little bit of a thickener for the soup. Now there are often a lot of questions about why to use canned tomatoes. And the reason that canned tomatoes are usually regarded by chefs as something that's an acceptable thing to get out of your can is that tomatoes can be super finicky and they don't usually store very well. The tomatoes, when they are canned, depending on the season, can range from super sweet to super acidic. And usually the canned varieties are kept in, hybrid climate-controlled temperatures, and there's much less likely to be affected by the weather that the tomatoes had that would impact their taste once they've been canned. So using canned tomatoes is definitely the best way to have a consistent flavor of tomato. You can use fresh tomatoes. One thing that I could have done in this recipe is used half canned tomato and half fresh tomato, but in this instance I definitely wanted to make sure that my flavors were very even across the board and didn't have to worry about adding in extra tomatoes that wasn't basically doing anything but adding texture. So now that we got a little bit of a bubble happening, which is exactly what I want on this cheap little cooktop that I'm using here. Next we're going to be adding our beans. Now like I said a little bit earlier, I like a lot more corn than I like beans. We're going to be putting in 2 different kinds of beans though, just so we have some different color to look at. I'm only going to add about half a can of each. A little bit more than half a can of the black beans, and then these are just red kidney beans. Get those in there, mix them in good. Now I did not rinse my beans. I did drain them, but I did not rinse them. That is your personal preference to what you want to be making, or how you want Sorry, that's your personal preference, whether you want your beans to be rinsed or not. Now, I know some people have qualms about the bean juice or something getting into the whatever they're cooking, and I have rinsed beans in the past, but because we're making a soup, it's not of a big deal, not as of a big deal if the beans are a little liquidy. I definitely wouldn't recommend just pouring it in without draining them, of course, but a little excess liquid is going to be okay. So this is already looking awesome. Transition so you guys can see how good this looks. I mean, just look at that. I'm going to let that simmer, and I'm going to grab some parsley because I forgot to get it out at the beginning here. So I have some fresh parsley, and usually what I do is I take the parsley and I add it in a couple different batches. So my first batch here is going to be at the beginning, obviously. Now if I can find a pair of scissors. We always lose our scissors in our kitchen. I don't understand where they go. If I don't have any, looks like I'm going to have to use a knife, which is not a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut up a tiny bit of parsley, and then this is going to add a little bit of extra green color to the stew. So get that nice and chopped up. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and toss some of this in. And I mean, right away, the pop of green is an instant color enhancer here. It really helps to make the reds and stuff, reds and yellows and all these colors really pop out a little bit. But we're only going to add a tiny bit of parsley for now, and then we'll add a bunch more at the end. I just want to get a little bit of it in there and cooking with everything to help spread that flavor out. All right. So we're cooking. So next up, we're going to be adding some of our herbs and spices and other flavorings. First, we're going to add some minced garlic. Now, I used a pre-minced variety of garlic. Some people kind of think that's blasphemy. Honestly, I just think it's easy. There is a little bit of a flavor difference. I don't think it's enough to make me, think that I'm doing something bad by using the pre-minced garlic. I just do it to save time. I do have a garlic mincer. I know how to mince garlic, but it's just so much easier to just already have it minced and tossed in, and then your fingers don't smell. It's convenient. That's what it is. Next, we're going to be adding our herbs and spices, and we'll go ahead and get those lined up to put in. So first up, we have a little bit of the umami flavor, some Worcestershire sauce or Worcester sauce, or however you say that. I think I'm going to get some comments on how to say that. The Baking Diva says your live looks very clear. I'm using OBS to film, and then a couple of webcams to keep me going, and they're filming at like 1920 by 1080. And let me tell you, I was like almost in tears 5 minutes before going live because I'm using OBS Studio, which apparently is notorious in the YouTube community for basically just being crappy. Apparently it breaks down a lot and stops working, so I'm hoping that doesn't affect the stream today. But yeah, it was super frustrating getting this all set up. So I'm surprised that I'm here right now doing this recipe for you, but I'm glad that it's looking good. So thanks for pointing that out, Baking Diva. All right, so we got our Worcester sauce in, so now we're going to be adding a little bit of smoky paprika, a little bit of cumin, and then a little bit of chili powder. And you can use as much or as little of the chili powder as you want. It's basically just to add heat. You can also substitute, instead of using chili powder, you can also substitute your favorite hot sauces. I was really considering putting in some of the Da Bomb hot sauce in here, just as kind of the soup will clear your sinuses and your soul. But then I decided I actually wanted to enjoy eating this, so I'm going to keep it on the milder side. But if you watch Hot Ones, you'll know that Da Bomb is the middle sauce on how hot it is. And I don't think I can handle it in the soup, to be honest. Like, it's a lot of heat. So now we have this going. It's kind of cooked down a little bit. Again, as you can see on top here, we have a little bit of this, like, not really liquid, sort of liquid kind of happening here, and that is exactly what we want. Now at this stage, you can just eat it like this. You can make it into a chili. You can do it without worrying about putting anything else in there, and it'll be kind of like a chili consistency. But that's not what we're here for today. So we're going to be making it into a soup from this point. So first up, we have a little bit of lime juice to add some acidity. Stir that in. And then we have two different kinds of broth here. Now, I am very much into the Better Than bouillon and the beef broth bases rather than buying beef stock or beef broth or chicken stock or that kind of stuff. I prefer getting the base and then making it myself. And I like doing this for two reasons. One, because I feel like I have more control over the intensity and the flavor of the broth or stock that I'm making. If I'm not making it from scratch, I'm going to be using the Better Than bouillon stuff. I've used other stuff in the past, other beef and chicken bases in the past, but the Better Than bouillon is definitely the best one out there. And again, like I said, the reason that I like using it is because I have a control over the flavor. Now, usually they say like 1 to 2 teaspoons is enough. It's an equivalent to 1 like bouillon cube. But I actually use a little bit more. I usually use about a tablespoon of it because I really want the beefy flavor or the chicken flavor to come through like crazy. So I use about a tablespoon of the beef broth and then about a half tablespoon of the chicken broth. And we're just going to go ahead and pour those in. And basically immediately you get soup. And this is exactly what we want. And then go ahead and pour in your chicken. So yeah, and right now we're at the perfect soup consistency. Just look how good that looks. I mean, I kind of want to just eat it right now, to be honest. So there are a few things you can do here. You can let the soup continue to simmer. You can simmer it for up to an hour, I would say, on a medium-low temperature. I would just put a lid on it because it'll start to spatter, and the last thing you want is tomato juice all over your kitchen. But, you know, at this point, it is basically ready to eat, and that is what we're here for today. I'm going to let it simmer for a couple minutes and prepare some more parsley for my garnish. And then I'm going to grab a bowl and we'll go ahead and give it a nice little taste test. So again, we're just going to chop up some parsley here. I know my internal knife skills are screaming at me right now because usually I do this with a scissors. If you watched my last live stream when I made chicken parm, I used some parsley in that, but the way that I cut it up was to use a shot glass and some scissors. And basically you put the whole leaf parsley into the shot glass, however much you want to use or however much will fit, and then you just use some scissors and cut it up. It's usually a lot faster and you don't have to worry about cutting yourself live on TV. But you know, we're just going with the flow today. So yeah, we're gonna let this come to a simmer. I'm going to put some of the stuff away here. Now we have a couple different toppings that we're going to be able to choose from. Let me get some fresh lime. We'll go ahead and slice that thin. I don't know why, I like having the option to put fresh lime on things. Yeah, this recipe makes a ton of soup, which is great. Like I said, I think at the very beginning I was saying that this is going to be my lunch and my boyfriend's lunch for probably the rest of the week. It gets a lot of soup. It's perfect for meal prepping, and I mean, it's probably pretty healthy too. I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to make you thin, but in comparison to some of the other foods you could be out there eating, this is definitely the lesser of all evils. So looks like it's kind of getting a simmer to it. Again, this is the limitation of the hot plate, I think, right here. that it's not gonna bubble up for me the way that I want it to. So basically we have a couple of different toppings. The first one we have is just regular tortilla strips. If you don't have tortilla strips, you can just use regular tortillas. I'm sure once this recipe is served to my boyfriend, he will be eating it just straight with tortilla chips, doesn't even need the spoon. But these are specifically for topping and garnishing your soup. And then we also have some chipotle cheddar cheese. This is a shredded variety. You can use your favorite kind of cheese. I just like the spicy cheeses, and I like to just slather them on. So that'll be my other topping. And then finally, I have some Greek yogurt. Now, you might be like, what? Why do you have Greek yogurt? Well, this is actually a plain Greek yogurt, and it's how I substitute sour cream, because sour cream can be pretty bad for you when you're trying to be a little health conscious, which some days I am and some days I'm not. Today, apparently I am. Greek yogurt is the way to go, especially because sour cream, it can be really bad for you. But again, this is just a plain Greek yogurt. It's the Oikos brand. I've also used the Faye brand. And really, it's the exact same consistency and just almost the exact same taste. I actually prefer it over sour cream because it's not quite as tart, which is basically how I like my sour cream, is to not be super tart. So let's take another look-see at how good this soup is coming. I mean, just look at it. It's amazing. And it smells so good. I cannot wait until they have 4D VR streaming with scent capacity and all that kind of stuff, because if you could smell this, you would be trying to jump through your screen, which I'm sure will also be a thing that happens in the future. Just instantly be able to join me here in my kitchen. So I'm going to let that go. I'm going to grab a bowl. I had the perfect soup bowl in the other room, and then I forgot to bring it into this room. How lucky is that? So, getting pretty close here. As you can probably see, let me switch you back. You can probably see here, if I can get it up there without the camera fogging up on me or freaking out. It is amazing. I mean, it is packed full of different flavors and textures, and just all around it's going to be a mix of sweet and spicy and savory. I mean, this soup is going to have a little bit of everything. So I would wager that's probably going to be as close as we're going to get it done with this electric cooktop. Again, if you want to let the flavors develop further, you can cover and simmer the soup for probably about an hour to really get those flavors developed. But if you are being quick about it like I am and trying to get it done in about 30 minutes, which is basically right on point right now, we are just ready to serve. I'm going to go ahead and get a nice ladle full here. Guys, I mean, seriously, sometimes I surprise myself with how good things come out. So I'm just going to quickly move this out of the way, put that back there, and then maybe I'll let it simmer and I'll enjoy it later. Ooh, that's hot. Go ahead and get my hot pad out of the way here. Okay, so now we are just left with our amazing soup. I mean, it's kind of hard to see how amazing it looks from above and not being in person, and I wish I knew more about live streaming to figure out how I could zoom in and take close-ups, but this is about as good as it's gonna get. So basically, oops, I need a spoon. We are just going to top it off here with a nice handful of cheese, and then add our tortilla strips. And I kind of like to use the cheese as a buffer between the chips and like the soup and stuff, or the Greek yogurt, because basically the cheese is gonna melt and create this like top layer, and it's gonna make it so that the tortillas don't get soggy as fast. And then the same with the Greek yogurt. I want it to still be a little bit cold and have a little bite to it still when I get to the bottom of my bowl. I want to still be able to see where my Greek yogurt is in the bowl. And then, of course, finally, just give it a nice sprinkling of fresh parsley and garnish it with a lime. And I mean, this is the end result here, people. I mean, we whipped this up in almost exactly 30 minutes from starting the live stream to putting it in the bowl. We are at 30 minutes and 30 seconds, guys. It can be done. It can be done in 30 seconds. I just proved it. 30 minutes. I just proved it right here. You know, this is such an easy soup to make. If you're in a rush, you can pop this out on any weeknight, and if you aren't in a rush, you can let it simmer for a little bit longer to really, you know, get those flavors developed. So, of course, now the last thing to do is give it a nice little taste, and if it tastes half as good as it smells, I think I might just die right here. Let's go ahead, get a nice little spoonful, get some yogurt on there, a chip or two on there. This is going to be hot. Oh my god. I mean, it's hot, but it's really good. I mean, it has, like, it smacks you with a little bit of heat at the beginning from that chili powder, and then it sort of mellows out and lets you kind of taste all the textures. The beans come through. You get a nice little hit of sweetness in the middle from the corn, and then, of course, the crunch and the tang from the sour cream. I'm going to have another bite here because it's really good. Yeah, guys. 30 minutes. I did it. I almost freaked out over not being able to get live on time, but I did it. Soup's good. It's all good. We're good. You're good. If you guys, pardon me, if you guys have any recipe requests for recipes that you would like to see done, whether it's a live stream or out of your kitchen or a Know Your Food episode or any kind of recipes that you think that I should learn how to make, leave a comment down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to keep up with the recipes that I put out every week. I try to put out a new recipe every Sunday and at least 1 to 2 new written recipes every week on the starvingchefblog.com. So let me know how this goes if you decide to try it for yourself. I'm certainly very pleased with my results here. And yeah, thanks for stopping into my kitchen and hanging out with me today while I was cooking. I hope you get to try this recipe, and I'll talk to you all soon.